This is Guild Wars 2's new expansion, Secrets of the Obscure. So after the Dragon Cycles ended, where do we go from here? Well, the only other area we really have left to explore is either the other side of the planet, or we go into the Mists, and that's what's happening. We have entities from the Mists called the Cryptus Invaders coming to attack us. Apparently they've been waiting for the other dragons to not be a threat anymore. As we saw with Kralkatorrik, who literally flew into the Mists and started eating it to death, the dragons were probably holding these people back. I think of them more so like the ethereal or the brokers from Shadowlands and WoW, these otherworldly ethereal beings from basically what we believe to be the afterlife coming to attack us. Basically, the afterlife is now attacking Theria. So as with this expansion, there's going to be fractals, strike missions, and hard modes are still around, and they still seem to be the main endgame activity for a lot of the game. Let's see here. So there's going to be the Wizard's Court. It's a group of powerful mages who live high in the skies of Theria. For some reason, they never came down to help with the Elder Dragons, thanks. They're offering access to what they are calling the Wizard's Vault, a system, and it's similar to World of Warcraft's weekly loot vault system. You can play the game how you want, PvP, PvE, or World v World, and actually be able to progress this vault and then get loot on a whatever you want. It actually rewards you with currency. You go to a vendor and you spend that currency on some like actually good end game quality loot, like mystic coins that help you craft legendaries and sell for a lot of gold, legendary crafting starting kits, and even gem store exclusive items that are not exclusive anymore. Now you can earn them in game, so it's similar to the WoW's trading post. And they've already confirmed there's no paid upgrades, there's no payable skips, so you don't have to pay to get into the system. It's not a battle pass, there's no way to skip it. Just play the game and get the reward, which is pretty damn good. It really depends on how much they have to make you do in order to progress it. It's also playable by all accounts, so you don't need the current expansion to play this feature. But there are some rewards that you can't get because they will be tied to this latest expansion. On top of that, we are also getting like a brand new legendary armor set. Here we go, a brand new legendary armor set that looks really, really damn good, especially the plate and the light. It looks absolutely fantastic. And the thing about this legendary armor set, it's available very easily to casual players by just open world activity, reagents, and ingredients, leveling up your mastery, and then crafting. It's probably going to require a lot of crafting reagents because it's legendary armor, but you don't have to do pinnacle activities for it, so it's great. Legendary armor always comes with like unique effects. It's open world, do whatever you want, pinnacle reward for players, which is great, and it's something that games like World of Warcraft and Diablo 4 have really needed. And then it also says there's going to be 3 new quote upgradable 2-tier weapon sets coming with the expansion, and I don't know what that means exactly. You can get one of the weapons already if you pre-order the game, part of the Eagle Eye set. I'm not sure what they mean by upgradable 2-tier weapon set, because Guild Wars 2 has never been about upgrading your weapon. It's always been a horizontal gear progression. So we'll see, maybe it upgrades the look and the effect, who knows? The biggest changes about Guild Wars is combat update, and this is fucking insanity what they're doing. This is insane. This is the largest amount of changes I've seen in MMO due to their combat system, I think ever, that I've ever heard of or that I've personally ever seen. The way combat in Guild Wars works, you have elite specializations, which is pretty much once you hit max level, you can specialize into an elite spec for your class. Like for Elementalists, the mages of Guild Wars 2, you had Tempest or Catalyst or Weaver. Each spec came with a specific weapon that your class could now use if you were spec'd into that. Tempest could use Warhorn, Weavers could use one-hand swords, Catalyst used Great Hammer. With this update, they are making it to where you don't need an elite spec anymore to use these weapons. And that's insanity. I can be a Weaver Elementalist with a Great Hammer when I used to only be able to use swords. I could be a Tempest Elementalist, which could only use Warhorns, but now I can use a sword with it. You can also play Core Spec, where you just use the core spec of the class, you don't use any of the elite specs, and then use any one of the elite spec weapons that you want. It's insanity. That's huge. With how much weapons and elite specs have tied in to player balance and how you played the game for years. On top of that, beforehand the elite specs were an entire passive and active talent tree. You'd go down the talent tree to choose the passive bonuses you wanted and how the spec would play out a little bit here and there. That's pretty much how it worked. We're not getting another one of those, but instead what they're still giving us a brand new weapon for each class to use. So look at this. Guardians can dual wield pistols now. Revenants get a scepter. Warriors get a staff. Engineers, a class I play, get short bow, so I think of like Aloy from Horizon. That's kind of cool. Rangers get maces. Thieves get axes. Elementalist is my main, and we get manhandle man, pistols, finally. I lost my mind when I saw this. Then I realized it's not dual-wield pistol spell slinger, it's main hand pistol. So we can main hand a pistol and offhand like a dagger, so you could be like some weird elemental swashbuckler. That could be interesting. Necromancers get dual-wield swords, which again, for me, Necromancers is my second play class. I love that, because that means I can now recreate the fantasy of a Death Knight from WoW in Guild Wars. And that's fucking awesome for me. And I left Mesmer for last because Mesmer gets a rifle. And the thing about Mesmer that's funny, Mesmer's weapons do the opposite of what the weapon actually is supposed to do. Mesmers naturally can use great swords and daggers. Now, what are those weapons, you say? Hunks of metal that require you to get close to your opponent? Wrong. Mesmer with a greatsword casts spells from the greatsword at range, while Dagger summons psychic daggers that you, at range, attack opponents with. So then the meme was Mesmers now have a ranged weapon rifle. Does that mean Mesmers are gonna gun bash people to death with the rifle if we're just gonna keep the theme here? It's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen. They're also introducing relics and a rune rework. Now, runes work as Guild Wars 2's tier sets. If you've ever played World of Warcraft or even ESO, you know what a tier set is. Equip a certain number of pieces, get bonus effects. If you had 6 pieces of armor and they all had a rune slot and you put 6 of the same rune category in them, you'd get all the bonuses and a unique effect. You would build your rune tier. That's pretty much how it works. It's the same thing as tier sets, it's just, with removable and equipable runes. Now the 6th rune, the final one, would give you a unique effect. It would give you something based on how you play. Like every time you dodge, get like a bonus to mastery or a bonus to damage or get a barrier when you dodge, etc. They're taking that unique effect out of 6th runes completely, and they're putting it into relics. Now that sounds like they're just splitting things up, making you have to get more gear, but the interesting part, they're giving us a unique slot for relics. So now you don't have to build into a certain rune family to get a unique effect anymore. Build whatever runes you want, and then you can choose the unique effect. And the only downside with this is that we already have legendary runes. So people are wondering, how do legendary runes work with the legendary relics now, and etc, etc. And that comes with one of the big issues with Guild Wars 2. ArenaNet has a notorious history, an infamous you could even say, of never being able to properly balance their game. Not only not properly balancing their game, but not doing it frequently enough. It got so bad to a point, there was a couple-year period, I believe, they only balanced the game twice a year, and then even when they balanced the game twice a year, they would only hit the incredibly outlined, overperforming specs for the most part, but not bring any of the incredibly weaker playstyles up. And then they would take the middle specs and they would just do random changes to the middle specs that wouldn't really, a lot of the times, wouldn't make any really sense or reason, which would just upset the player base, because then we would see that and we'd go, well, we gotta wait another 6 months now for another balance update. But now they're saying that they're gonna be doing it quarterly, so every 4 times a year, they're gonna be doing balance update based on feedback. So we'll see. We'll see if ArenaNet can break this notorious curse they have of just having an incredibly unbalanced game. And the thing about unlocking all the weapons is being called Weapon Master Training, combining different weapons and elite specs, whatever you want. And that is the best part of this entire spec. And more interesting than that, why don't we jump right in, because it's beta weekend and they're allowing us for a preview of this, and let's just see what the hell we got going on here. Okay, so I have to make a new beta character in order to test these out. I just randomized them, I gave them a random name, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna check it out. What I really want to see is that with Elementalists, because of our attunements, we have some specs that have combined, like Weaver allows you to combine 2 elements at once, and your third ability would be a combined ability. But then Hammer, Catalyst Hammer Elite spec for Elementalists also forcefully changed your third ability as well. So I want to see how that mixes together. If you have a Hammer equipped with Weaver equipped, well, what third ability are we gonna get? Do we get the Hammer's Orb, or do we get a Weaver combined ability? I'm very curious to see. Okay, so I want to equip a Hammer, and then we'll go over to our build, and we will put on Weaver. And Weaver allows you to attune into 2 different elements for Elementalists. So right now I'm Fire. Now if I go to Lightning, this is our new combined ability. So a Fire and Lightning Orb. Summon projectiles of ice and air that circle around you, striking enemies they pass through. So basically, for the Hammer mechanic of the third ability gives you orbs, Weaver allows you now to just summon 2 orbs at once. While the active ability just allows you to fire the orbs at an enemy. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, because because it seems a little bit confusing on how the elements rotate and to get the right orb, all 4 orbs that you need. But that's really interesting. I do like that. So here's something big people wanted to know. Weaver, again, Weaver's the spec people want to know about Elementalists, because Weaver was the spec based on the weapon you have equipped, combine the 2 elements you chose into a brand new ability. So we know what it is for hammer, but what is it for the new pistol? If I can find pistol in this is, it all just bleeds together. It just, my eyes. So it seems like we're not able to use the newer weapons yet. I think it said that this is something they're going to release in the second major patch of the expansion. So it looks like we're not even able to test that real quick, but we are able to test what does exist right now with the specs that we have available. Now this is going to be really nightmarish for ArenaNet to balance, because not only are they notorious for not being able to balance things properly, Elementalist is notorious for being the hardest thing to balance. It didn't matter how you buff or nerf an Elementalist, there is some part of Elementalist that always stays top tier, which honestly is no surprise if you're a WoW player, right? Mages are always on top. But now they've given Elementalist access to any weapon that we can currently use with any spec that we can currently use. The possibilities are absolutely fucking endless for this class to just get nerf batted to death. Now I'm gonna try one more, because Reaper I don't care about until we get dual swords. And we don't get that until the second big patch, so I wanna try one more class. We're gonna try engineering. Engineering is a wacky class for me personally because I love all 3 specs of engineering. You have Hollowsmith, which is pretty much a solar-powered warrior. And then you have Scrapper, which is literally just like, I have a little gyro thing that buffs me and a giant piece of metal I'm gonna smack you with. So we equip Hammer to get some of the hammer abilities, which I personally love. And that's with Scrapper. Now, what if we went to Hollowsmith? That is insane, because Scrapper is already a class that is meant to get up into your face, bash your face in, do a little bit of control. The function gyro would lay down some fields for you to do combos in, but now we have Scrapper with access to Hollowsmith. Now you can't see it because my game is still currently downloading. As soon as it passed the playable mark, I just jumped in, so a lot of the animations are not showing. But basically, now you have a Scrapper, and then you have a more pissed off solar-powered Scrapper. You run through all your cooldowns with your hammer, and then you swap to just hard light and start bashing everything to death. That's an insane melee-focused, brawling-centered class for Engineer. That's insane. On top of the buttons up here you see are going to be functions based on the kits you have down here. You get a bonus act. So Engineer is going to be an incredibly powerful brawler class, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to balance out. Yeah, so more or less, that is just a quick rundown of what is going to be coming in Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure. We got the same endgame activities that we've had, time and time again, strikes, hard modes, and we have brand new fractals, the better dungeons in Guild Wars, because Guild Wars has dungeons, but they've neglected them for so goddamn long. We have an entire combat overhaul on a scale of which I have personally never seen in an MMO that has already existed and decided to change its core mechanics, as well as they're also giving players, after you beat the story, access to Skyscale, an endgame mount that is the only flying mount in the entire game. That normally you'd have to go through like hours and hours of grinding in order to get. They're giving players access to it now because they realize barely half the player base has access to Skyscale because nobody wanted to do the grind. The grind for Griffin was bad enough. Nobody's gonna sit there and do Skyscale. And this expansion launches August 22nd, a month and a half just about from now. Now we don't get the new weapons, but we will get access to all these other combat overhauls, which is just gonna be completely insane for gameplay. The story is going to go in a completely different direction. They're completely building off a brand new part of the world. World of Warcraft is still playing off the cosmic chart, light and void, yada yada yada. Guild Wars 2 literally goes, the mists that you kind of knew were where spirits were, but we really didn't show you much of it, and you really had no info on it for the last over 10 years? Well, here we go. The dragon cycle's over. The mists are here, baby. They're attacking, they're invading us. We're going to go into the mist. We're going to learn about races in the mists. We might even meet up with some more of the deities that we did last expansion. So yeah, this is going to be an insane expansion for Guild Wars 2. And they have literally blown my expectations personally out of the water with what they're saying that they're right here that they're going to be putting into the game. Now they have promised to deliver some things, and they've always delivered everything they've promised, but sometimes it's normally not up to the quality that they hype it up to be. So we're going to see, but I'm going to temper my excitement a little bit to see how they start handling the end of this expansion's life before they release the next one. Who else is hyped for this expansion? Who else is a Guild Wars 2 player that's gonna love everything that they're reading here? I'll see you in Tyria. Hey, classmate, keep your voice down. Grandmaster doesn't like us talking during lesson. Do you think you could give me a like and a sub? Every bit helps, you have no idea. Grandmaster's coming this way. Act natural.